Hi, this is Max. Today I want to give some tips for architectural visualizations with Maya and Marui. Here is my Maya scene, and before I jump into VR, I want to make sure that the units are correct. So I open the Maya settings and check the scene units, and in this case these are centimeters. Now I start Marui and put on my headset. I'm using Oculus Rift here, but you can use almost any common VR headset. In VR, I can now inspect my scene. To get an idea how the room would look in real life, I set the scale to 1:1. So my Maya scene meter is also exactly 1 real-world meter long. You can see that now the scene clips down in the hallway. That's because Marui's far clip plane is by default 10 meters away. If the scene is larger, you can increase this value in the Marui settings in the Display tab. I also set the up axis of the scene to align with the real world so that the room is straight. I also set the elevation level so that my floor in VR is where the floor in real life is. Now I lock these so I don't accidentally change them when moving through the scene. Now I can still pull myself through the scene, but in this mode this is a bit tedious. So instead I open the Marui settings and switch my navigation mode to joystick. Now I can just move through the scene by tilting and rotating the controller like a joystick. Good, now I want to adjust the lighting a bit. So I'm switching to the Lighting Rendering user interface. Here I have the Lighting Rendering menu on my left controller. For example, I can create a new spotlight. Currently, this light seems to have no effect because we're still using Maya's default lighting. In the Display menu, I switch to Use all lights in the scene. Now I see the effect of the light. To place the light, I switch to the Omni Tool. Of course, once I push the light far away from me, it's hard to reach for the rotation handles. But I can either just hold the controller in front of the rotation handle ring, or I can switch the interaction mode to laser pointer in the tool menu in the tool settings submenu. While rotating, I can hold the Alt key, which allows me to work more precise. Next, I open the attribute editor to change light color and details. Here I can change the light color and attributes like the cone angle and fall off. So, when you have a customer in your studio, you can of course allow them to jump directly into Maya as well. But if you don't have that option, you may want to make a 360 rendering. Thankfully, since Maya now includes the Arnold renderer, this is super simple. First, I create a camera from my current point of view. For this, I'm using Marui's POV camera tool. I'm just dragging a frame of what the camera should see. Of course, if I render 360 degrees later, this doesn't really matter. But now I have a Maya camera at the point where my head just was. I can use the Look Through Selected mode in the Display menu to check the position again. But I can see there's a light rotation in the camera frame. For 360 degrees, we do not want that. So I use the attribute editor to set the X and Z rotation of the camera to 0. Now I can open the Arnold render view and render the scene. Arnold rendering takes a lot of computing power. To keep my VR experience smooth, I set Arnold to preserve more threads for Maya. I also turn off interactive updates in the Arnold render view for now. Of course, this still isn't 360, so I select the camera And in the attribute editor, in the Arnold section, I switched the camera type either to spherical, that's monoscopic 360, or to VR camera, that's stereoscopic. I also have to adjust the exposure setting of the camera for the correct brightness. And voila, I have a 360 rendering. Finally, if you want to record some camera motion like walking through the apartment, you can use Marui's motion capture system. Here I can choose to attach the camera to my head. Two things are important here. Firstly, we do not want the motion capture to change the camera's rotation, only its position. If I rotate the camera, it could make the viewer sick, because to them it will look like the room is rotating. Secondly, we do not want to preserve the current offset between my head and the camera. We want the camera to be exactly where my head is. Also, down at the bottom, I reduced the number of keyframes. This results in a smoother motion. Now I just start the recording and walk through my virtual apartment. Good, let's stop the recording and detach the camera. With the time slider, I can see the camera move. Now all that's left is to leave VR and use the normal Maya user interface to render the animation sequence. And that's it. I hope you found this information useful and that it can save you a lot of time.